acceptance of existing developments, securing public utilities, and verifying ownership of land allottees. All persons claiming rights to any parcel presented documents as proof of ownership. During the historical land injustices hearing, number NLC/HCLI/435/2018, undertaken on 25th June 2018, the National Land Commission determined that 1. Kenya Forest Service had authorized an acquisition of 910.6 hectares, which include 186 hectares for public utilities, 266.86 hectares for the Koibem community. The survey had not provided a map for the perimeter of the land excised, and that is why the disgazettement had not been completed. 2. Koibem community's claim was valid and that new title deeds be issued upon handing over the title documents held by the residents of Koibem. 3. Kenya Forest Service to facilitate the disgazettement of the excise area from Nandi South Forest to enable issuance of title deeds to Koibem community on land-to-land basis. And 4. The Director of Survey, together with the Nandi County government, to expedite the excising of the forest area that KFS excised from Nandi South Forest and hand over to Koibem community. 9. The petitioners aver that since the concerned residents were moved out of their land and homes 29 years ago, the land they left behind now has a mature, dense forest cover. However, most of the original title owners have died due to natural attrition, with many survivors suffering from depression. The lack of titles has exacerbated poverty due to lack of access to credit facilities from banks, inability to sell land, and uncertainty associated with doubtful ownership. The petitioners therefore pray that the National Assembly engages relevant state agencies to ensure that all the squatters are settled. Honorable members, having established that the matter raised in the petition is well within the authority of this House, and further that the matters raised in this petition are not pending before any court of law, constitutional or legal body, I hereby commit the petition to the Public Petitions Committee for consideration pursuant to Standing Order 208A. The committee is required to consider the petition and report its findings to the House and to the petitioner in accordance with Standing Order 2272. I equally commit the petition presented by the Honorable Ken Chonga to the Committee on Public Petitions and to report back within the same 60 days. Thank you. Joses Lelmengit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to highlight an additional dimension on the ongoing petition by Koibem villagers. We have another nearby village adjacent to Koibem called Ngerek, which share the same grievances. The village is close by, and I was asking for a collaboration of these two communities so that the petitions committee can look at this problem as a unified problem. The same issue is, needs to be addressed because the same village, the same community within the same villages have a similar issue. So this, I want to request you, Honorable Speaker, to ask the petitions committee to consolidate these two petitions for Ngerek villagers and for Koibem villagers, so that they can have an holistic approach in solving this problem once and for all. I want to agree from the statement that you've just read that the villagers in Mgwen constituency, that is Chepkumia ward, Koibem village and Ngerek villages, have had problems since it's almost about 3 decades now, since 1996. And Honorable Speaker, people are living in fear. They stay in that, they can no longer build permanent houses. They don't have a collateral for any taking any facility, loans, and for such. So I want to ask this Honorable House, through you, Speaker, so that we can join hands and assist these people from Nandi County to solve this issue once and for all. I want to thank you, Speaker, and I hope that justice will be done. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Lelmengit, and you can take time and attend the committee when they deal with the petition and give your views as well. Melly, Paul.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the petition.
I call you Paul. You are Julius.
I'm Julius, yes.
There was another Paul Melly.
Yes.
I knew.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the petition, and I want to say this, Honorable Speaker, that the issue affecting the people of Koibem, Ngerek, and Chepkumia in general is a historical issue of injustice and fairness, where the government agencies, more specifically the Land Commission and the Ministry of Lands, has really failed to address the issue of the landless people. The people of Koibem gave out their land. It was very rocky. It was an area where it was not habitable. But when they gave out that land, government officials through Kenya Forest Service went on to actually ask them to move to an excised area out of the Nandi South Forest. When they reach there, they have not issued them with title deeds. And I want to say that, I want to ask through you, Mr. Speaker, that the petition committee visit the site, look at the predicament of these people in Gerek, look at the predicament of the people in Koibem, and actually get first-hand information so that actually this issue is settled once and for all. Two, Nandi County has so many squatters. You know very well that this is a county which was actually had a lot of brand of colonialism. Many people are moved away. In my region of Chemelil, we have thousands of squatters. And as a member of parliament, we've been appealing to the Ministry of Lands, and more specifically the Lands Commission, to ensure that all these people are settled. So I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and as members of parliament, we shall attend the petitions committee, and also we will actually want them to visit and see the people. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wangari? Mother Wangari?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm rising to support Honorable Ken Chonga's petition. And Mr. Speaker, you remember recently we committed another one, I think from Nyatike, similar issue. And I think what this demonstrates, the frequency of these issues will keep coming to this parliament and even to last parliament, Mr. Speaker. So I would actually request on this petition, Mr. Speaker, even as it is being considered on its own merit, that the first one, the public petitions churns out, outlines the parameters and outlines the review and who does it, Mr. Speaker. I think that direction is very important so that we don't have the questions going to Ministry of Education, then to TSC, and the same problem persists, Mr. Speaker. And on the second petition, Mr. Speaker, the issue of National Land Commission, and I think this has happened in many other areas apart from Nandi, because in my area in Oljorai, we still have the same questions by what was done by National Land Commission. So I think the issue of visiting is very important, but even as we get the outputs and the reports, Mr. Speaker, that it also has a general bearing on what position it takes when National Land Commission is the one that messes up some of these processes, Mr. Speaker, but I support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Jared Okello, member for
Nyando.
Nyando.
I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And out of the twin petitions, I would want to delve into Ken Chonga's Kilifi South constituency and support this petition. Honorable Speaker, as my sister, Honorable Wangari, has alluded, last week we discussed a similar matter touching on Nyatike constituency that was brought forth by their Member of Parliament, Honorable Tom Odege. Honorable Speaker, there is a likelihood that in the days to come, we may receive a litany of such petitions going forward. And therefore, even as the public petitions sit down to retreat and do a report on these petitions, as members of parliament and as our speaker, Honorable Speaker, we need a remedy. As I did say, Honorable Speaker, my two neighboring constituencies, Nyakach constituency and Muhoroni constituency, are benefiting out of the hardship allowance. Yet, when we talk about real hardship, Honorable Speaker, and even the prevailing floods cutting across our nation at the moment, Nyando seems to be domiciling the floods, Honorable Speaker. Yet, it was carved out of that scheme, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, no public officer wants to serve in a place where there is no hardship allowance, yet in the neighboring constituency, under the same topography and climatic conditions, people are benefiting, Honorable Speaker. If it is 10,000 shillings over and above their pay, Honorable Speaker, as a parliament, we may have to reconsider this and have 10,000 cutting across all public servants across the entire republic, Honorable Speaker, so that we don't have to have this back and forth requests coming before this parliament each and every time, Honorable Speaker. I have lost this year alone more than 200 teachers going to other constituencies without replacement. And this is a travesty. It is a tragedy that my people of Nyando are experiencing. And we disenfranchise at the end of the day these students who go to these schools, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you.
And therefore we must comprehensively look at this matter, and I thank you for the opportunity, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Aldai. Give her the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the petition that has been that you have read today on the resettlement of the residents of Koibei in Nandi. This particular issue, Mr. Speaker, also affects an area in my constituency, and the Nandi South forest, which is being talked about, is a forest that borders my constituency and the neighboring constituency, that's Mgwen, where these people were resettled. I also have a group of people that were resettled from a forest called Bonjoge Forest and taken to the same Nandi South Forest, an area now called Bonjoge. And at the time of resettling these people, a portion of them were not resettled. So as we speak today, the portion of them who still live in the Bonjoge Forest currently live in the forest or in the demarcated land that is called a forest. So even as this petition goes to the petitions committee, I think it is important that the Ministry of Lands, when finally they implement, realize that they need to implement all the pending relocations that were supposed to have been done for the people, and especially for these people who are supposed to come to Nandi South Forest, because a small portion of these people who live in the rocky areas were removed from the Bonjoge Forest and taken now to the Nandi South Forest, but their portion of land has never been allocated to them. So as this petition is looked at, I would appreciate that if they can widen and ask the Ministry of Lands to fully implement all the relocations that had been done or that had been requested. And as you can see, and as you can hear from all members here, Mr. Speaker, is that we have so many such petitions on land matters, especially for relocation of people, which are still pending within the Ministry of Lands. We wish that the Ministry of Lands can also amalgamate all the pending resettlements and do one resettlement. Where my headquarters is, for example, in Kobujoy, is actually land that was that was excised from the forest land, the Nandi South forest land. But up to today, Mr. Speaker, that land has never been degazetted and actually given to the various ministries that are occupying that particular land. It's all government entities. So even as we do this, we also help or wish that the Ministry of Lands, together with Ministry of Forestry, fast tracks the proper excisement of the land that was being excised and the relocation of these people who are living in the forest. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Member for Cases.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for this moment also to weigh in on the issue majorly touching on education sector. Mr. Speaker, the hardship allowance and how it has been administered for quite some time, I would dare say it is so selective, in that you will find some areas with extreme hands in the same locality, but with different geographical treatment. A case in hand is in Keses constituency. We have two locations, that is Timboroa location, Olenguse location, and Ndungulu location. These are the areas with extreme weather conditions. Majorly is Timboroa location, that the cold situation is on the higher side. The survival of teachers who are posted on that area is at risk. And the other day, when reversing of the delocalization had been undertaken, the schools around that area, as we talk now, have suffered much. Teachers have had to move back to where they came from, and now the number of staff that are teaching the children around that area has been reduced. Schools now are suffering, and all the reason around this one is the weather conditions is not humane enough for these particular teachers who are brought up from different warm areas. And I dare say that we need to have a clear definition of the word hardship, because some points hardship is regarding the terrains, looking at the aspect of arid areas, but there are some hands that it's not arid, but the situation is dire. And therefore, I would want to call upon the Ministry of Education and Commission TSC to reconsider and look at teachers. We have a scenario where Tinderet constituency is enjoying the hardship allowance, being an hardship area. Neighboring location of Timboroa on the same border are not enjoying this one. And therefore, it is suffering. So teachers are moving from one hand to the other hand. So the students, the pupils, the learners around that area are not given fair treatment like the pupils from the other area. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to call upon this.
Point of order. Yes, Omboko Milemba.
Very rare, Honorable Speaker, and not with any prejudice. But 2-3 days ago, we were doing the budget here, and most of these honorable members were in the House. And I pleaded with them, we pleaded with them, that these teachers are spread all over your constituencies, and that all this will come back to you. Because even if we speak about Teacher Service Commission, the budget was here recently, and we pleaded with you to increase that budget so that those teachers would get those house allowances and even the hardship allowances, including confirming the PNP. Honorable Speaker, members were not serious on that. So it really is in the House here. This is where the rubber meets the road. We have to allocate. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Keses MP, I think you are done. Okay, give him the mic. You are giving the mic to somebody behind him.
Thank you so much. Mr. Speaker, it's good to remind my senior, policy dictates the budget direction. So when we sort out the policy issues on aspect of hardship allowance, then it will inform the budget direction. So I want to submit this, Mr. Speaker, with honesty. Let us create fairness in the sector so that the children of Kenya, of the Republic of Kenya, receive its fair treatment in access to education. Thank you so much.
Member for Narok North, Mama Pareo.
Giving me this opportunity to add my voice on this issue on education. Narok North is a constituency that has really been hit by the shortage of teachers. And I remember 3 months ago, before this house, I brought a question that was asking TSC to consider Narok North as a hardship area. And up to today, I have not received any response from TSC, while we have schools that have a population of about 600 pupils with 2 teachers, because the neighboring constituencies are beneficiaries of the hardship allowances. So to me, Mr. Speaker, I would like to know why I have not received any response from TSC, yet with the schools in my constituency are really going under, they are understaffed, and the teachers cannot deliver to the pupils as the way they are supposed to. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Komongina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity so that I can also support the petition from Mheshimiwa Chonga. Mr. Speaker, in Kenya we say that education is free to every student. But indeed, this is just a fallacy. Because in some areas where students are supposed to get that free education, there are no teachers. And the reason being that the teachers are always moving away, especially from those hardship areas. So as Parliament, we need to seriously look into what is really happening. Who are these who are demarcating areas which are hardship and areas which are not hardship? And how come that those which are very hardship, teachers who are there are never given hardship allowance? So my point is that we must be appraised that there is no free education in Kenya, because in some areas our students are not getting that education because of what has been done through not saying exactly where the hardship areas are and what is supposed to be remunerated to those who are teaching there, and so they always move out as they are posted. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Elachi, we should wind up on this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also just want to raise my voice, Mr. Speaker, when we are talking of hardships of teachers. I think when you look at Nairobi and you realize a teacher walks into a class and there's 200 seated awaiting one teacher to teach and maybe to teach nearly all subjects, then when it is hardship, then Nairobi takes the bigger chunk of what is called hardship. When you look at rent, when you look at how the teacher right now with fuel cost that is very high, from where the teacher is coming from to the school, I think they are going through a lot. So even as we speak about all this, Mr. Speaker, one of the things we need to ask ourselves as the House, the President added more teachers. We just need to see how they were spread. Let us see how we are balancing now all the counties. Before even we start now talking about that hardship, can we see the numbers across board so that we know which county has the highest teachers of TSC, which county has the highest number of BOM teachers who don't have enough teachers who are under TSC. Then from there, we are able now to ask ourselves, due to this high cost of living, does it mean now all counties are hardship areas so that teachers cannot transfer going all over? That way, Mr. Speaker, we will have helped the country to balance this issue of teachers, knowing very well whether we employ how many, we will still have scarce teachers. But more importantly, as I finalize, Mr. Speaker, the junior secondary school, we need to get it right as we move on together so that we don't go back to the same challenges we are facing. So with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support.
The chair of public petitions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would want to speak first as a member of Parliament for Kitui East, and maybe say something about as a member of the chair for Public Petitions Committee.
As a member of the Public Petitions Committee, you have no business saying anything here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the guidance.
To you.
Yeah, I would want to go back to my initial assertions as a member of
Speak for your constituents.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, most of these petitions are touching on the lives of common mwananchi, whom we are representing here. These petitions are coming in forms of members bringing the petitions for on behalf of the public, or members of public looking for ways of getting the petitions to your desk, and eventually you give it to us. Mr. Speaker, we have, most of them have been worked on. My concern is administrative in this House, Mr. Speaker. As much as we discuss the petitions, there are recommendations on the reports. And some of the reports never manage to get to the floor of the House to be discussed. they go straight to the implementation committee. I don't know whether if the standing orders do not allow for the implementation committee to get time and actually give a review to members on how far they have gone on certain reports and the implementations. I think, Mr. Speaker, you can help us, members as under the country, if through your directive, we can have the implementation committee getting some slot in the hours provided to give a feedback on how far they are gone in terms of following up for implementation of these proposals. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I've heard so many members, and I share the same sentiments. Members, it is the Public Service Commission which has the mandate of declaring a place, whether it can be an hardship area or not, whether it's a municipality and it can benefit from enhanced house allowance or not. But the sector public service boards like the TSC, JSC cannot. It is the preserve of the Public Service Commission that they communicate to the relevant sector service commissions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
In fact, Chairman, what you are complaining about is already authority vested in you and your committee, because Standing Order 227 2 reads, the Public Petitions Committee may recommend that a report on a petition be considered for debate in the House. So the discretion lies with you. When you have done with the petition, you communicate to the petitioner, you send a copy to the clerk, and if, in your opinion, you believe the matter is sufficiently important to be debated by this House, you recommend so to the clerk. Then it will find its way to the floor for debate. So the authority is vested in your committee. And as I commit these petitions to your committee, the chairman of education, I'm sure you're taking judicial notice of the avalanche of petitions and matters hardship that is within your competence. You would, suo motu, move to deal with this matter even as it's running through the public petitions, because if you listen to the member for Nyando, he replayed exactly what he said last week on another petition, and many other members as well. That should trigger you on your own motion, as you are granted by the standing orders, to engage the TSC, the ministry, on this matter, and bring a report to the House, or do whatever you can to alleviate the complaints that we are getting on a daily basis. Thank you. Yes, Melly? Oh, sorry.
Well guided, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I think the committee has got taste of this matter severally. It affects across the country. But one time when we took it up to Teacher Service Commission, the Teacher Service Commission said that the department that is vested with the power of allocating an area hardship lies in the office of the President. So the Teacher Service Commission are only implementing what the Directorate of Personnel Management has done to them. So I have actually been consulting with my colleague here, Chair Public Petition, and I also guided him actually the right CS to come before this House and to answer this issue is the CS Interior and Coordination of National Government, who will be in a position now to declare several parts of the Republic hardship or not hardship, and circumstances under which every other place are going to be gazetted. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We shall actually do as guided.
Thank you. Because the questions, Chairman, yes, being raised by the member for Nyando. Why should Muhoroni be hardship and not Nyando? Why should Nyakachi be hardship and not Nyando? And that's your neighborhood. And you live in that area, you know the difference. Yes. So you should have some rationale in declaring an area hardship. Majority Leader?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, actually, what the Honorable Meli has said is preempted what I wanted to say. I think, Honorable Speaker, we need to call the Minister for Public Service to this House, the new Minister, Moses Kuria, to come and give us a program on how he will actually give us these hardship areas. Apart from teachers, Honorable Speaker, there are many government officers that suffer, police officers that suffer. There are people who work in government ministries that have been posted to these areas, not just teachers. The same way the teachers suffer, the same way the civil servants also suffer, and even county government officers. So what we need to do is a comprehensive review of the areas that are hardship areas. And I think the new minister has displayed energy on this matter. So I think what we need to do is that you give direction, that he be summoned here, so that he can come and give Parliament a program on when and how he will make sure that these areas are declared hardship, so that it is not just an issue of the Ministry of Education. I thank you.
Honorable members, allow me to acknowledge the following in the Speaker's Gallery: Kenyatta University students pursuing political studies from Roysambu in Nairobi. And in the public gallery, Masai Mara University, I believe it's students from Narok North, Narok County. On your behalf and on my own behalf, we welcome them to the House of Parliament. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. Honorable Speaker, before I lay the papers, I'd like to say that, remind members that tomorrow we have a sitting in the morning, being a Thursday. We usually don't have a sitting in the morning, but we will have a sitting as we agreed in the procedural motion for tomorrow, Thursday, and the following Thursday too, and the next Thursday, so that members are prepared. Secondly, if you allow me also to acknowledge my alma mater, Kenyatta University. Students are here. I want to tell them that I was there too, and many other members here.
Majority Leader, I've given you authority to lay papers.
All right, I want to do exactly that. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, 22nd November 2023, the afternoon sitting. 1, reports of the 16th meeting of the Bureau of East Africa Community Speakers of the National Legislatures and the East African Legislative Assembly held on 16th November 2023 in Juba, South Sudan. 2nd, reports of the Auditor General and the financial statements for the year ended 30th June 2023 and certificates therein in respect of A, Kenya Electricity Generating Company PLC, Global Fund Tuberculosis Project, Ministry of Health, East African Portland Cement PLC, Center of Excellence in Sustainable Agriculture and Agribusiness Management for Egerton University, integrated programs to build resilience to climate change and adaptive capacity of vulnerable communities in Kenya, National Environmental Management Authority, East Africa Skills Transformation and Regional Integration Project, Kenya Coast National Polytechnic, KCNP, Kenya Transport Sector Project, Kenya National Highways Authority, Multinational Arusha Holili Taveta Voi Road Corridor Development Project, the Kenya National Highways Authority, Nuno Modogashe Road Project, and the National Information Platform for Food Security and Nutrition Project, Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I beg to lay.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Wamshomba. Where? Okay. Committee of Implementation. Wanjala.
Yes.
They have listed on the order paper that is Wamshomba to make the statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was so equally wondering.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to reply the statement by the Honorable Gathoni Wamuchomba, MP, on the development of policy on standardization and production of school uniforms in Kenya. Honorable Speaker, the Committee of Implementation is established in consonancy with the National Assembly Standing Order 209. The committee shall scrutinize the resolution of the House, including adopted committee reports, petitions, and the undertakings given by the National Executive, and examine whether or not such decisions and undertakings have been implemented, and where implemented, the extent to which they have been implemented, and whether such National Assembly standing orders implementation has taken place within the minimum time necessary, and whether or not legislation passed by the House has been operationalized, and where operationalized, the extent to which such operationalization has taken place within the minimum time necessary. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 47, the Honorable Gathoni Wamuchomba moved a notice of motion in regards to development of policy on standardization and production of school uniforms. This resulted into a resolution being passed on the 8th March 2023. Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Member elucidated in her motion that she was concerned about the cost of uniforms, which has continued to escalate, thus becoming prohibitively expensive for the poorest within the community, with some schools demanding that parents pay uniform money to specific school accounts, a move that locks out many children whose parents cannot afford the expensive uniforms as listed by schools. Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Member on 5th of October 2023 further requested for a statement from the chairperson of the Committee on Implementation regarding the implementation of resolution on standardization and production of school uniforms in the country. Honorable Speaker's Committee of Implementation, as per the dictates of Standing Order 209, the committee summoned the Cabinet Secretary in charge of education, Honorable Ezekiel Machogu, on the 24th October 2023, to follow up on the operationalization of the resolution. He stated that it was during the time of the resolution that His Excellency the President had already constituted the Presidential Working Party on Education Reform, with a wide mandate to review various aspects of Kenya's education system on financing of basic education. The views of stakeholders on school uniform were captured and stated that school uniforms are expensive for parents because school administrations collude with suppliers and force parents to purchase from a specific supplier identified by the school administration. Honorable Speaker, the Cabinet Secretary duly informed the committee that the Working Party recommended that the Ministry of Education should provide guidelines to regulate and liberalize the questions of school uniforms in basic education institutions. The ministry is currently working to implement these recommendations, which will address the concerns that were noted in the resolution by the House. Honorable Speaker, the Ministry of Education have put measures to further the edicts of Article 53(1)(b), which provides for the right of every child to free and compulsory basic education. Through a circular dated 30th May 2023, which is attached here under reference number MOE/HQS/3/13/3, regional and county directors of education were directed to do as follows: ensure that the stoppage or practices where schools stock uniforms and compel parents to buy them or direct the parents to purchase uniforms from specific dealers and not process the names of non-compliant schools for necessary actions within the provisions of the law. Honorable Speaker, the Cabinet Secretary accentuated the importance of the same by highlighting Regulation 67.3 of the Basic Education Regulations 2015, which stipulates that no institutions shall prescribe a specific supplier of school uniforms or any other materials for the parent or guardian. Honorable Speaker, the Cabinet Secretary also issued a directive in preparation of the Form 1 intake in 2024 to the effect of 1. No school will direct parents to any particular outlet for the purpose of purchasing uniforms, and no school will stock any uniforms and boarding-related items whatsoever. And 2, no school will stock any uniforms and boarding-related items whatsoever. Honorable Speaker, the letter is attached. Honorable Speaker, as the committee chair of this formidable and high-regarded committee, the committee would like to summon those various school heads that have abrogated the stipulated rules by the ministry to serve as an example to the rest. I hereby submit and ask honorable members that this is core to our parents, to our poor parents. You must guard against it, and I table this so that you photocopy and make sure you go and tell our parents not to allow those nonsense to happen again in our country.
Do you have anything to say? I see you are listed on the order paper erroneously.
Yes, I think listing of my name in the order paper just tells you how many people have fallen in love with me. Mr. Speaker, I want to recognize and acknowledge the statement that has been given by the chairperson in charge of implementation committee, the Honorable Wanjara, who is also my senior and my friend. I appreciate that he has taken time to come up with that very heavy statement. And I also appreciate that he understands that there's a lot of pressure that is coming from our parents who have suffered for a long time in the hands of school administrators, school principals and teachers who dictate where to buy uniform, which uniform, how much to buy, and when to buy, which is against the law, the competition authority laws that govern forces of markets. However, appreciating that the statement has been laid on the table of the House this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, as a parent, I'm still not satisfied. My prayer through this House, Honorable Speaker, please protect me from the members who are ahead of me, in front of me. Thank you. Mr. Speaker,
Order, one
my prayer,
away, the other one is sitting down. Now you are safe.
My prayer to this House, Mr. Speaker, behind the motion that I tabled and we debated unanimously, was to ask the Ministry of Education to come up with a policy. Instead of them coming up with a policy, which is a binding document that any teacher that contravenes that policy can be taken to the court of law, they have taken a shortcut and they have issued a circular. My question is, that is a very single parent in Budalangi constituency who has been suffering through this exploitation of uniform purchase. Will that parent get to know there is a circular? Mr. Speaker, a circular is a document that is used for internal communication. It is a document that is going to be used by the school administrators and school managers and their administration. But the parents are not aware there is a circular. So come January, the same problem I've been fighting of exploitation will be repeated, Mr. Speaker. So why is the ministry running away from coming up with a policy? A document that can be tabled anywhere and can be used in the court of law should the parents be exploited and feel that their rights have been violated. Mr. Speaker, as a lawmaker, in line with Article 53 of the Kenyan Constitution that provides for the rights...
Wanjala, what are you doing? And even if she was, You have no right to just stand up and pretend that you want to contribute to a matter. Wanyala. You are totally out of order. And she correctly described you as her senior. So you know the rules better, in my estimation. Carry on, Mshomba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for protecting me. Mr. Wanjala should be informed that the woman for the job is on the microphone. Mr. Speaker, as a lawmaker and a representative of the people, it is our duty as lawmakers to defend the Constitution of Kenya on behalf of the children of Kenya who have no voice. But we have a voice, and that is why we are in this house. In line with Article 53, Mr. Speaker, that provides for the right of all children to access free basic education in Kenya and access equality in uniform and be protected from exploitation. As a mover of this motion, I am not satisfied with the response I have received from the Ministry of Education, and I still insist that the prayer that I prayed, supported by this honorable house, be honored, and a policy on uniform regulation and standardization be made and put in place. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Who do you want to inform?
To inform the Chair, Committee on Implementation.
Just make a comment. He's
Chair.
not on the floor. You only inform a member.
Yes.
Who is on the floor.
Most Vice Chair, Honorable Speaker.
Yes,
Honorable Speaker, I wish to inform Honorable Muchomba that the matter that he has prosecuted this afternoon is a matter that is before court. Honorable Chair, I've heard the chairman on the Committee on Implementation citing circulars by the Ministry of Education purporting to stop head teachers of schools from getting uniforms from suppliers. Honorable Speaker, I wish to inform the House that pursuant to a High Court petition number 5 of 2023 before the High Court of Kenya Chuka, the High Court issued a conservatory order restraining the Ministry of Education from implementing the circular that was issued by the Ministry of Education. So, Honorable Speaker, the matter is active before court, and therefore it is sub judice.
Thank you, Wakili. Yes, Elachi?
Mr. Speaker, while I appreciate that, I don't think the orders were meant for Parliament, and therefore this is a matter of very, very, very serious public interest, where we are about to have the last 844 joining high school. You can imagine how many children are about to just join school in January, and we are here at Parliament trying to imagine how the high cost of living is, and we are talking about school fees and then uniforms, and we cannot indeed tell parents that they cannot go to any shop they can afford. I think what Parliament is saying is that we want parents to be able to afford so that each child can get a uniform. And therefore, for me, Mr. Speaker, we must ask the Chair of Implementation that indeed the Ministry of Education must ensure every child has a right to go to school, to afford a school uniform, and therefore we must agree as this House that school uniform must be affordable to all our parents, and my parents who are in the slum areas in Nairobi. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair, Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to support what the Chair Implementation has just put it. That school uniform has become so inhibitive to learning, to an extent that schools, principals, and even some in the education sector have formed a cartel system, where at one time they direct parents to specific stores or shops to buy schools where they get their cut there. Honorable Speaker, a school uniform should not actually stop a child from attending
Chairman,
classes.
that's a very serious allegation against
Yes.
teachers. Do you have evidence?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Why I'm talking tough on that, Mr. Speaker, I don't have particular evidence, because I have seen where some parents are directed to go to specific areas to go and buy uniform, Mr. Speaker. why don't you allow the parent to buy any uniform anywhere for his or her child? And two, these uniforms that the parents are actually buying for their children, this is their child. Allow him or her to buy the uniform where he or she likes. And two, these stores that are actually selling this particular uniform have specific price tags. 12,000, 13,000, 2 pairs, 20,000 shillings. That's quite expensive, Mr. Speaker. So actually, let us actually go follow that particular implementation committee report and have parents buy affordable uniform for students. Thank you.
Lillian Kogo.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker, for this chance. And just as a by the way, probably the chair is mentioning this because he was an immediate former school principal, so he may have been, but that is just as a by the way. Honorable Speaker, I want to mention this. Where in the first place did the idea of school uniforms come from? Why don't we just scrap school uniforms from our schools, because it is making life so difficult for our parents? The school fees is high. Why in the first place are we letting our children put on uniforms when they are going to school? Honorable Speaker, I should propose that we should have a system that is just going to scrap off this story of school fees and story of uniforms, so that our parents are probably let to only pay for school fees. We find that the next debate we are going to have here, Honorable Speaker, is the raised school fees, because national schools are supposed to pay 53,000. And as it were, it goes to 90,000 in some schools, it goes to about 83,000. There is no standard. There is no standard fees. So I should propose, Honorable Speaker, as a member of this House, that we should just scrap all these suckers of school uniforms, and our children should be allowed to go to school in peace. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Lillian, are you saying that if you scrap uniforms, children will go to school without clothes?
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. They will not go to school without clothes, but they don't also stay home naked, Honorable Speaker. So somehow parents are going to devise ways and means of taking our children to school, because it is a headache. The reason why I raise this, Honorable Speaker, is that life is already so costly. Life is so expensive and unbearable for parents. So if we could just remove the 20, 30, 15,000 that is used for school fees, I think it's going to get the burden off our parents. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I don't want to escalate this. Can we end here on that? We'll ask now the implementation chairman has given you a report. You know what to do with it. What I don't understand, you members, is you are turning yourself into a house of lamentations. You run your CDF. You have women and youths in your constituencies. Why don't you set them up in business to knit uniform for schools within your jurisdiction at affordable rates and create wealth within your own areas? It's within your powers to make these decisions. I don't understand why you are lamenting. Let's let the chips lie where they fell. Angela, what is it?
I thought you asked me to respond.
Pardon?
You asked me to respond.
There is nothing to respond to. You gave a report. Members have made comments. It was not a debate to call you to reply. We leave it there. It will journey to the next level in the ordinary manner. I'll now give the floor to Senior Counsel Tienda Molo to say something different.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker,
Order.
The Deputy Leader of Majority tabled various reports, and among them was the report of the meeting of the Bureau of Speakers of the East African Community, which was tabled, and it's of 34 pages. And Mr. Speaker, it bears comment because it has provisions that are relevant to members in barely 10 days. So with your permission, Mr. Speaker, let me first congratulate you and the rest of the speakers for that 16th meeting of the Bureau of Speakers, which was held on the 16th of this month in Juba. Mr. Speaker, allow me also on behalf of this Parliament to congratulate the Speaker of the National Assembly of the United Republic of Tanzania, who is the incoming chairperson of the Bureau of Speakers, but has also recently been elected as the President of the Interparliamentary Union. As a member of the East African community, we are proud of that. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, to indicate to the members, as contained in the report, that the next set of the East African Community Legislative Assembly Games will be held from 7th December to 18th December.
Order, Honorable Meli and Wamshomba. There are rooms behind the Speaker's chair. If you want to have a conversation, you are free to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the Honorable Wamuchomba and the Honorable Meli are encouraged to make use of those rooms. Mr. Speaker, allow me to repeat to the members for preparation purposes.
Members who are keen on going to Rwanda for Iyala Games, you better listen to what Otienda Molo is saying.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, these games will be held between 7th and 18th of December in Kigali, Rwanda, under the theme for a progressive, peaceful, and all-inclusive East African community. Two things that members should note that is different from prior games. One is that all the disciplines, except athletics, will only have the participation of members only, without staff. That is the resolution that is contained in this report. Secondly, all members will be electronically identified. And as we speak, through the Speaker and the Clerk's office, they have already complied as a legislative assembly, and all the electronic and biodata details of all the members have already been shared for those purposes. This is to ensure that the complaints we've had before, that there are some member states who bring non-members to play, will never happen again. In addition, Mr. Speaker, it is important to tell the members that it was resolved that after Kigali, the 14th session of these games will be held in Kenya next year. And obviously, we will have a discussion around that in terms of how it's to be. I urge that when we have that discussion, we will need to consider two things. One is that this report resolves that although this 13th session is members only, except for athletics, and we will talk about that, from the 14th session, it has been recommended that we hold members-only games and staff-only games. And so it means as a country we will have to deliberate around that. We will also deliberate in terms of the venue, and I think decentralization encourages us to move from Nairobi. We will decide where it is. The Honorable Owen Bayer will be highly welcome to the Kavirondo area, for example, which he has rarely visited. Members, this is important because the purpose of these games is to deepen and widen cooperation. Well, okay. It's deepening, widening, and strengthening.
It is deepening, widening, and tightening. That is the slogan.
I am duly corrected by the Speaker. Strengthening, widening, deepening, and tightening. The whole purpose of these members is this familiarity will actually encourage us to reduce hostilities within the region and to enhance unity towards an East African Union. And therefore, we do not take them for granted. In that respect, I am quite happy, Mr. Speaker, reading page 21 of the report, that Kenya as a country has done very well. Of the member countries, Kenya is the one country that does not owe any money to the East African Community Kitty. And I think that is something to be commended. I want to say lastly, Mr. Speaker, that I'm very happy that as a Parliament of Kenya, we are sending 14 different disciplines. We have always had the strongest delegation. We have always won these trophies, and we intend to keep winning. And I want to urge the members who are not involved in any discipline, in my capacity as the captain of the football team, I urge you to get something to do. If not volleyball, do netball. If not netball, do basketball. If not basketball, do football. If none, Honorable and Bayer, get to the tug of war. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you. Moya? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and the Senior Council have put it very well. But just for record, Honorable Speaker, the mission of the community is to widen, deepen the economic, political, social, culture integration. But one member in Juba did indicate also to tighten, which I have no problem. We can tighten and strengthen. Having said that, Honorable Speaker, the overall objective of East African Game is to foster the regional integration of the community. And the regional integration is not only based on trade, one-stop border post, and the like. The socio-culture aspect is key to regional integration, considering the 4 pillars, and the utmost goal of the community is the political federation. So time and again, when we integrate through sports, we get to learn our community in terms of culture and understand them. Honorable Speaker, in regard to this, as the custodian of regional integration, the Committee of Regional Integration is requesting through your office to let as many members of regional integration attend these sports in Rwanda. As much as I encourage them to join me in the field, I do play volleyball and they play with me. But Honorable Speaker, I request if you may direct that in this particular year, you allow a number of members, and in the future, we shall encourage most of them to join in the field. The reason is that I have learned Uganda, Tanzania have side sessions within the games, and I already spoke in this house and made it for record that come next year, we intend to have a conference for 7 partner state regional integration committee with each country's budget chair, so that we resolve the matters of budget in East Africa once and for all. So it will be a good opportunity for you, Honorable Speaker, to consider the members of regional integration. Thank you.
Can you write to the Speaker to that effect?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I will make that letter immediately.
Okay. Member for Jabalungu, you want to say something on this? Or something different?
No, it's the same.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Speaker. As I actually make my points and comments on what Honorable Otiendo Omolo talked about, that now this year, that we are only going to allow only members. I was simply wondering what will happen to the young members of Parliament who sits next to me, Lel Mengit. How will he be able to make his talent be of good use? They want to widen, to deepen, and to tighten. I was just wondering if we could allow a few of the staff members to accompany. It will be of great fun. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That is a very invalid argument. Yes, Jen Kihara. Is that Jen Kihara? Give the mic to Jen Kihara, member for Jabalungu. Just go and play.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the remarks of the Senior Council. I have had a chance of traveling to CPA, where we meet people from this region, that integration tells me that when I see somebody from Uganda, that's my brother. And in fact, when we are like voting, we vote together so that when these Europeans talk of LGBTQ,
we are able to identify with ourselves from the region. Mr. Speaker, about the sports, I am in the of the ladies team.
Musa Sirma, what is, give him the mic.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Having been a minister in the Ministry of East African Community, I want to anticipate. We are the biggest economy in the region, and we need to be seen.
Next order. Members, you've heard the communication. It was also decided at the Bureau that even as our staff will participate in of any country team, the overall performance will only be judged on the participating teams of members only. So those of you who are not in any teams, it's up to you to join and play. I believe my friend McClap will be in the tug of war. Next order.
Order number 8, the Assisted Reproductive Technology Bill, National Assembly Bill number 61 of 2022.
Order, honorable member walking out, take the nearest seat. Those members on their feet, can you take your seats? Order, honorable members, take your seats. Is that KJ? Honorable members, I'm satisfied there's quorum to put the question, and I now put the question at order number 8, that the assisted reproductive, as members of that opinion say aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Reproductive technology to prohibit relation to children born of assisted reproductive technology processes and for connected purposes.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 9, the Appellate Jurisdiction Amendment Bill Act.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 10, the Employment Amendment Bill, an act of
attire. What is?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. It's one for the financial year 23-24, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 16th November 2023. Honorable, tabled in this House. I want to thank members of the Public Debt and Privatization Committee who have continued to work diligently since this committee was formed, and for the good recommendations that they have been adopted by this House on the management of the CFS expenses. Honorable charge to Article 221 of the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, the CFS expenditures are expected to increase to Kenya shillings 2.08 trillion in the revised estimates from Kenya shillings to 2.5 billion Kenya shillings. This is also the first time the CFS expenditures have exceeded the Kenya shillings 2 trillion mark. Honorable Speaker, and there's need to enhance the oversight capacity of the National Assembly over these expenditures in order to promote transparency and accountability. This may require the enhancement of the National Assembly standing orders to provide for adequate reporting requirements, audits, reports, and salaries and allowances, Kenya shillings 4.74 billion. Miscellaneous services, Kenya shillings 60 million, and the guaranteed debt, 18.9 billion. Honorable Speaker, it's important to note that the increase in CFS expenditure indicates the increase of expenditures that are largely non-productive and decrease the fiscal space available to implement other critical government activities. A reduction of CFS expenditure, primarily debt servicing expenditures, will be key in ensuring that budgetary outlays have an increased role in economic development. Honorable Speaker, the increase in CFS expenditure is driven by increase in public debt servicing expenditures, which constitutes Kenya shillings 1.87 trillion, or 90% of the expenditures under the CFS. This increase was as a result of broad currency depreciation that increased the debt servicing bill. Honorable Speaker, it's against this background that the committee recommends that the National Treasury submits to this House within 90 days a report proposing measures to reduce public debt servicing expenditure by Kenya shillings 500 billion over a 5-year period and open up fiscal space for increasing development expenditure by a similar amount. Honorable Speaker, during the consultations with stakeholders, it was noted that there is need to stabilize the exchange rate and prevent or slow down further currency depreciation through increasing the amount of foreign direct investment, increasing economic output, targeting export markets, and increasing both donor and grant financing and the efficient utilization of the same. Honorable Speaker, the committee therefore recommends that there is need for the enhancement of the 5 key priorities of the bottom-up transformation agenda, that is being agriculture, MSMEs, affordable housing, digital and the creative economy and health, by including 1, export-driven manufacturing, mining sector, financial and insurance sector, in order to enhance their contribution to GDP growth. Honorable Speaker, these sectors are critical in generation of foreign exchange, earnings, and ordinary revenues, which are also required to meet public debt servicing expenditures. Honorable Speaker, review and enhance policies designed to boost Kenya's tourism industry, propose new policy interventions that will increase diaspora remittances and the role of the diaspora in promoting economic growth, and 4, undertake economic reforms and establish domestic environment to attract foreign direct investment and international investors. Honorable Speaker, on salaries for holders of constitutional and independent offices, we continue to observe that there is a consistent over-budgeting of the salaries, which are reduced during subsequent supplementary estimates. This is a matter that the committee has raised in its report on the Consolidated Fund Services expenditure for supplementary 2, financial year 22-23, and on the approval budget estimates tabled on the 21st of June 2023. Honorable Speaker, the committee has therefore recommended that the Auditor General undertakes a special audit on the salaries for state officers over the past 5 years and submits a report to this House. Similarly, the National Treasury will be required to submit to this House a report detailing actual expenditures over the past 5 years and to ascertain the actual status of that expenditure. Honorable Speaker, other recommendations made by the committee include: the National Treasury submits to the National Assembly regulations guiding the sustainable use of the overdraft facility, since the committee noted that the overdraft was being operated as a long-term facility, leading to incurrence of high interest costs and lack of flexibility of the liquidity threshold. 2, within 90 days, the National Treasury and Office of the Attorney General submits to the House amendments to the Public Finance Act of 2012, measures to prevent incurrence of commitment fees. The committee noted that part of the cost of the loans was commitment fees on undisbursed loans, which was increasing the debt service bill. Honorable Speaker, it's my humble undertaking to move and ask Honorable Omboko Milemba to second. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Speaker, as I second, I want to actually tell the House that you always speak about issues of foreign debt, and there are issues that you always speak on even when you are in the meetings that happen back in the constituency. That the same way we speak about the foreign debt having increased, that by the year 2013, our foreign debt was about 1.89 trillion. And since 2013, when Kibaki was the president of this country, it has increased all the way such that in 2022 and 2023, we are talking about a foreign debt of 8.588 trillion. Indeed, the effect of this is that we are paying the debt. Honorable Speaker, as we pay that debt, it means that the payments that used to be there originally have increased. And that is what the CFS expenditure is all about. The CFS expenditure, which actually accommodates a direct charge on 3 items, that is the foreign debt payments, the pensions, and also the salaries of constitutional officers, have deeply and widely increased. Today, the payment from this consolidated fund has increased to a whelming 2.08 trillion Kenya shillings. And that is very, very high. And that is the matter that this committee was discussing. That can we reduce this? Because once the payments from the as expenditure is very high, then it reduces the space available for other monies to be used on development and any other forms of recurrent expenditure. Honorable Speaker, I would wish to pick out 3 items which we noticed that are really leading to increased CFS expenditure. Number 1 is the issue of commitment fees. Honorable Speaker and members of this House, that there are certain loans this country has taken and which have not even been received and are not working for Kenya. They have not been undertaken, they are not here with us. But we are paying something called commitment fees on these particular loans. And that as the recent study was done, the payment on these loans as commitment fees had risen to as high as 500 million. That is very expensive. Remember, we have not taken the loans yet. We have only negotiated, and they have been negotiated by MDAs, but we don't have the money, yet we are paying all that amount of money to those loans. And that's why the committee has advised, as the mover did indicate, that a report be given on the payment of those particular loans. Honorable Speaker, the other issue, the recent supplementary budget that was in this House, as the mover of the budget committee did indicate, was based on 3 items: the item of education, the item of the exchange rate. I want to pick out the item of the exchange rate, which actually took away a whooping 200 billion, simply because the shilling had fallen. And this is because we are now paying more in form of our debts, both outside and internally. Of the outside debts that we have taken, which you call foreign debts, majority of those debts are paid in either euros or dollars. In fact, dollars form about 67% of all the debts that we have taken, while euros form about 19% of all the foreign debts that we have. So when the shilling weakens, then it means we have to pay more. And that is why it is very important that we then, as recommended by the mover, we actually create a situation where we also have the foreign currency. So how do we do that? And yet, hence the recommendation that we improve on the better model of government, so that it's not just better, but we could even call it better plus, because we need to enhance the foreign currency that is in this country. And this can be enhanced only by increasing the exports so that we have foreign currency. Currently, we are depending only on agriculture to get foreign currency. But we are recommending as a committee that we would expand this to not only include agriculture, but also go to affordable housing, go to creative economy, go to financial insurance sector, and more importantly, go to manufacturing that is export-driven. In that way, we shall be able to get the foreign currency that is really required for us to actually also be able to stabilize the shilling. We had further indicated earlier on that the Treasury possibly needs to come in with hedging mechanisms which are allowed in an economic situation like ours, so that we take these foreign debts in a currency that we can actually be able to be in control of. Could we negotiate so that we are taking the foreign debts in shillings and not dollars, which will depreciate and finally lead us to this kind of situation where we are? Honorable Speaker, as I second, I want also to flag out the issue of the amounts that go to constitutional offices. These are salaries that are paid to constitutional officers, former presidents, and so on and so forth. Recently, you saw the Auditor General indicate that there is some form of planned, or was it budgeted corruption. This committee is addressing this, because at one point, the amounts that were budgeted for salaries of these constitutional offices was about 4.7 billion. But in the supplementary budget, you'll realize that it has been reduced to about 3.7 billion, actually saving a whooping 0.7 billion. Ordinarily, when dealing with salaries, it will be very difficult because salaries are not elastic. It will be very difficult to reduce by such a big margin. it means that it was actually over-budgeted for. And I want this parliament to be very keen about these issues. And that is why the mover of the motion has indicated that we want the Auditor General to go and do a special audit in that particular area so that he may give us the fine details of what could be happening in that area of the salaries that can be budgeted at 4.7 and then reduced, yet the salaries are not elastic. Honorable Speaker, there are issues of pensions which we have dealt with, which include even the pensioners that we are paying, who were of the colonial crown. They are based in Britain. They signed an agreement with Kenya to be paid pension in 1973 thereabout, and we are still paying them. We are not sure whether these guys are in existence or not. So the issue of CFS must become an important topic for all the Kenyans, and that is why the mover has actually advised that as a way of making sure that all Kenyans are involved, we actually improve on regular reports to the citizens. We also improve on citizen participation when it comes to issue of CFS expenditure. And we also improve on publishing the financial reports regularly so that the Kenyans can understand how we are dealing with the issue of foreign debt and the payment of foreign debt. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the mover for having also highlighted the measures that the committee has proposed to this House to undertake so that we may deal with the issues of making sure that we are able to manage our foreign debt in a more transparent way than we have been doing before. And has asked the Office of the Auditor General to undertake a special audit on allocations and disbursements over the first 5 years. We have also advised that as Parliament, we get regular reports from Treasury to see not only the foreign debt, but also to know how much we have paid in loans, how many loans we have taken in a quarterly basis, and the projected payments that we have to do with those particular loans. I want to ask this House to contribute very freely on this report and actually make this country have a stable economy and be able to manage its debts. Formerly, education was the most urgent thing to Kenyans, but currently foreign debt and the economy is extremely urgent. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I second.
Honorable members, I'll now propose the question, which is that this House adopts the report of the Public Debt and Privatization Committee on its consideration of the Consolidated Fund Services under the Supplementary Estimates 1 for the year 2023-2024, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 16th November 2023. Jerry Maina, are you queuing for this? No. Lillian Koga, are you queuing for this? No. Beatrice Kamei, are you queuing for this? No. Joseph McClap, are you queuing for this? Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the report of the public debt presented by our chair. So, Speaker, this is an area that has been left aside for many years as it affects actually the debt stock in this country. Mr. Speaker, the CFS expenditure is a critical expenditure for actually repayment of our debts, pensions, salaries and allowance of commissions, and other miscellaneous services, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, when we were doing this report, we realized that there is a deep error which requires some audit, Mr. Speaker. When we looked at budgets for those constitutional offices, it was actually exorbitantly exaggerated. it was higher in every vote. In fact, over 90% of the votes in salaries and allowances of constitutional offices were higher. So, Speaker, a case in mind is that of the Comptroller of Budget, Office of the Auditor General, Teacher Service Commission, among other constitutional officers whose resources were enhanced astronomically without due explanation on what has happened. So, Speaker, when we look at proposals that we actually give to the National Treasury, it tells you, Mr. Speaker, our loans in this country keep on ballooning because of exchange rate. Mr. Speaker, many members do not know that a change in $1 shilling has a resultant force of 46 billion debt. So, Speaker, this debt will be paid by many, many other generations in this country. And there is need to actually, we put proposals on how to actually manage this public debt, Mr. Speaker, or the rise in the exchange rate in our country. Two things, Mr. Speaker, are very fundamental. Why this exponential exchange rate going up every day? Mr. Speaker, number one, the oil marketers, Mr. Speaker, in earlier part of this year, experienced shortage of dollars to the tune of 500 million. As the demand for dollars rose, Mr. Speaker, and interest rates in the United States, the owners of the dollars, shot up and become attractive, then it caused what we currently call an artificial shortage on dollars in our country, and of the exchange rate in our country, Mr. Speaker. Towards making repayment of our debts issue, Mr. Speaker. And this is why we are saying, Mr. Speaker, we want to run away, Mr. Speaker, from domestic borrowing.
Can you give McClap the mic?
Mr. Speaker, I'm saying what we need at the moment, Mr. Speaker, is we need to do more to attract the dollar in our country, Mr. Speaker. And what plan do we have for Treasury? We are telling Treasury, run away from expensive loans, the domestic borrowing. Let's go for concessional loans that have a long period of paying and a bigger grace period so that we are able to actually restructure our loans and we'll be able to pay and reduce our fiscal deficit, Mr. Speaker. For example, Mr. Speaker, we've just passed our supplementary budget here. What supplementary budget? That's S1. Members who don't know it was an increase. Why? Because we are trying to accommodate shocks of foreign exchange rate. Mr. Speaker, the dollar is putting this country in a quagmire. So, Mr. Speaker, it is also responsibility for this parliament, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that let us live within our means as a country. The moment we do a balanced budget for Kenya, Mr. Speaker, that is when we shall run away from the Bretton Woods institutions. Mr. Speaker, I want to challenge these members and challenge this country, Mr. Speaker. Which country in the world, Mr. Speaker, has survived because of loans of World Bank and IMF? IMF will always use their loans and World Bank to colonize Africa, to ensure that Africa do not match those big economies, Mr. Speaker. It is only what comes out from our country that will change Kenya. It's not what is borrowed from the Bretton Woods institutions, Mr. Speaker. No country in the world has ever able to grow their economy because they will always create a chin in their dollar, like the Americans, Mr. Speaker. Whenever they have an issue in their inflation rate, they create a problem for all of us. And when they create a problem, that problem of the dollar has a multiplicity effect, what in mathematics we call multicollinearity. Multicollinearity is the effect of one independent variable results into a problem of many other independent variables, Mr. Speaker. And that is what is happening in our country. So, Mr. Speaker, we encourage production in agriculture, we encourage in production in tourism to attract more tourists in our country, and we also ask the Treasury and Central Bank to come up with RUTO policies to be able to actually control the rise and continuous rise of this dollar, Mr. Speaker, against our shilling, so that our shilling is strong. Even the fuel, Mr. Speaker, that you hear, Tanzania and so on, the cost of importing is the same. What makes the difference between Kenya, Tanzania, and our neighbors, Mr. Speaker, and Uganda, are the number of taxes and levies in the petroleum, Mr. Speaker. Otherwise, it is the same. Mr. Speaker, we as a committee have put up a recommendation which we think if the National Treasury will be able to put in place and the Central Bank, we should be able to turn around and our economy will be able to turn around and we shall be able to live within our means. And we also ask members, wherever they are visited by the President, let us not give pressure to the head of state to an extent of making too many pledges and creating more hole in our country, Mr. Speaker. It is time, it is us who make the budget, and we know what is there, Mr. Speaker. And if we know what is there, let's not also put pressure to create bigger hole in our country, Mr. Speaker. I propose that going forward, Mr. Speaker, we need a balanced budget for Kenya so that we live within our means and do away with the loans that creates problem and creates what is called multicollinearity problem for Kenya. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Club, Emmanuel Wangwe.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this report on expenditure of the Consolidated Fund Services under the supplementary estimates for financial year 2023-2024. Honorable Speaker, before I even go to the substantive debate, Honorable Speaker, allow me to thank the 12th Parliament to have thought it fit that, Honorable Speaker, they came up with this very good committee that now is able to bring out the issues touching on Consolidated Fund Services as a standalone report. Honorable Speaker, my colleagues who have joined us in the 13th Parliament might think it was normal. This used to be an annexure in the main report. We never used to debate it like this. It's a good thing that, Honorable Speaker, the 12th Parliament thought it wise, and indeed, I want to appreciate what happened, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, allow me to appreciate the committee to have brought up a very salient issues that are touching on the consolidated CFS, Honorable Speaker, and I want to be very particular and appreciate the level at which, Honorable Speaker, both the macro and microeconomic features are playing into the market today. Honorable Speaker, we look at the President's speech. He really confirmed to the House and the nation at large that, Honorable Speaker, he intends to settle the Eurobond. What are we trying to look at, Honorable Speaker? The Eurobond, having been a figure of about 241 billion, in this supplementary estimate, Honorable Speaker, it's being budgeted for at 330 billion. A whooping increase in amount of money we are going to meet as Kenyans. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, it means we must really get a good light at the CFS, Consolidated Fund Services, so that we can be able to tell where are we going. Honorable Speaker, I want to appreciate the committee, especially having considered it wise to tell Kenyans what is it that is happening when it comes to the expenditures of especially salaries. Look at what the media is talking about. On and off, it talks of some budgets which are not existing, some budgets of salaries which are beyond what has been budgeted. But, Honorable Speaker, the committee considering it wise to invite now the Office of the Auditor General. That is the only person who can tell us true numbers. Are they negatives? Are they positives? It's a good thing, Honorable Speaker, that now the Auditor General can look at the numbers and tell Kenyans, not just for this financial year, but let it be a 5-year drawdown and say these numbers reflect what was budgeted for and can compare and contrast the two. Honorable Speaker, we need to look at what is it that is happening to the CFS. Where is our funds going? We look at, Honorable Speaker, the funds are getting depleted out of the Forex. And when you look at the issues touching on Forex, Honorable Speaker, I wish to invite the PS of the National Treasury, who at one time in the recent past said that the shilling is not able to be stable simply because the shilling was protected in the previous regimes. Honorable Speaker, he is a statesperson, he is a very educated doctor, and we want to really thank him for that, but invite him to also make sure he puts in measures to protect our shilling. The only thing we know is a Kenyan shilling, Honorable Speaker, not to let the shilling to fall for free. Let it be resistant, let it be stable, let the shilling trade among other exchange currencies in the world where we can appreciate. If we allow the shilling to have a free fall the way it was going, Honorable Speaker, it is an issue that we have to really be concerned as Kenyans, and we want to invite him to the table, which now looks at it and say, no, the shilling must not fall. And Honorable Speaker, after all these considerations, we must also appreciate that at what level do we now support the government? At what level should we now oppose the government? We must come, when it comes to exchange rate, Honorable Speaker, we must produce what to sell outside the country. We are an agricultural organization, country. Let us support it in terms of what we can be able to export and earn foreign exchange, Honorable Speaker. Let us also look at what we can get, how we can get resources, Honorable Speaker. We want to see more budgeting going to agriculture, Honorable Speaker. Let us see, are we able to even produce enough sugar to consume and export part of it? That should be the position, Honorable Speaker. Are we able to produce more maize and export? That should be the position, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, if we can do that, definitely we are going to raise our foreign exchange earning, and the balance of payment is going to shift in favor of our country. Let us support the budgets when it comes to the issue of
John Mutunga.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, for the opportunity to also add my voice to this, Honourable Speaker. From the look of things, Honourable Speaker, and different from the historical perspectives, countries have grown and developed through borrowing. So it's not abnormal for a country like Kenya to borrow money from international organizations and from even other countries. So debt is inevitable. What's really important is that countries across the world have been able to manage their debts. And we are called upon today as a country to actually look into how can we manage our debt in the best way possible. So Kenya has been able to express its debt in various ways. Initially, we were expressing our debt portfolio in terms of percentage of GDP. And later on, we were convinced that it is also possible to look at debt in terms of absolute figures. And we did recalculate our debt in absolute figures. And later on, much later on, or a few months ago, we went back to percentages of GDP. Now, it is not the way we express our debt portfolio that really matters. What matters, Honorable Speaker, is the management aspect of the debt itself. Debt must be managed. So I stand to support adoption of the report by the committee and cite a few ways in which I believe as a country we can make money and pay our debts. Because where we are right now, we are constrained. Failure to manage debts means failure to develop an economy. With our shillings shrinking or losing value, it means therefore the debt portfolio grows. And sometimes it can be amazing. Let's change a lot more, Honorable Speaker, in generating resources for effective debt management. And Kenya has had opportunities in generating resources in many ways. In the past, and not so far off, we and our agriculture organized. We used to have a coffee quota of 130,000 metric tons in the world market. That 130,000 metric tons brought us foreign exchange. Today, we can barely sell 40,000 metric tons in the world market. So the difference means that we have loss of revenue or loss of foreign exchange, which would have otherwise assisted us in even containing the strength of our shilling. We used to have a thriving pyrethrum industry. Pyrethrum industry in Kenya was leading in pyrethrum sale across the world. We used to supply 70% of the world pyrethrum, the active ingredients in pyrethrum. Today, we can barely talk about supplying 10%. Countries that were far behind us have bypassed us, and they're doing even better. We used to have our coffee selling in larger quantities than probably we have right now. What then do we need to do? Honorable Speaker, we have a few opportunities. And one of the opportunities in the floriculture industry. Can we, as a country, try to Kenyanize this industry? And I want to particularly say this without any fear of contradiction, that we need to a lot more Kenyanize our horticultural and specifically floriculture industry. Because there's capital flight out of this country. Yes, we have farming already happening. We have provided the environment for farming to occur. We have allowed individuals and corporations from other countries to come and do their business here, farming business here in this country. But unfortunately, Honorable Speaker, what happens is that this money goes away. And some of these countries have been assisted by their mother countries to even invest. We need to focus a lot more on reducing the waste, reducing the losses. And if you look at our country, and I want to laud the government, especially the president, for considering to give some money to buy the dryers in the last budget. Because dryers will reduce the post-harvest losses, which has stood up to 40% in this country to lower. Once you contain the farmers having their revenue, then you reduce the need for even
I think just give him another minute to finish.
Thank you very much, Honorable
And
Speaker.
I can use this opportunity to correct you. It's 90% of the world's pyrethrum in the 70s was produced by Kenya.
We are producing 90%.
Not 70.
Okay, thank you very much for the correction. So we need to focus a lot more on reducing the cost of production. Today we are doing a little bit on soil health. We are trying to do something on provision of water. We have done something on good seed, quality seed. Those three factors determine what you can get from the farming processes. Quality seed, soil health, and water provision. Right now we are complaining and lamenting because of the El Nino rains. Honorable Speaker, if we had structures to contain this water in this country, Kenya would be another well-watered country. But we have not invested in that direction, so we need to do that. The moment we do that, we shall increase production and productivity, we shall feed our people effectively, and we shall also be able, therefore, to contain the losses in terms of importation of food. And we shall not lose our foreign exchange in that particular respect. We need to focus a lot more on organizing our farmers. Smallholder farmers are scattered across the landscape of this country. They have not invested in storage facilities. We need to focus on investing in storage facilities and aggregation. The more we aggregate, the more we realize the potential for industrialization. The government focus on industrial parks and aggregation and industrial park is a move in the right direction. We will soon realize the potential we have. But we have to be very careful not to allow middlemen alone to use these industrial parks or the storage capacity that the government is creating, because we shall perpetuate the middleman aspect instead of supporting those who are in production. We need to reduce imports in oil crops or oil products because we have the capacity to produce oil in this country. Edible oil, Kenya has a great potential to produce edible oil. At the moment we produce these crops, the waste material goes to livestock feed manufacturing. And that reduces again on importation and therefore the use of the hard currency. So, Honourable Speaker, we have options in the country. And focus on agriculture is really key. And it has built many countries, not just Kenya. Let us put more money in agriculture and we shall build this country out of the trouble it is in and contain a growth path that is sustainable and reliable. Honourable Speaker, I support.
Honorable Jerry Maina, member for Kirinyaga. Oh, she's not there. Then I have Honorable Lillian Gogo, member for Rwangwe.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
press the intervention button if you're...
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. And thank you for a very, very wonderful presentation that you did today, where I was in attendance of matters concerning women, leadership, and governance. I really appreciate you. And I want to rise and also add my voice to this particular report on the expenditure of the Consolidation Fund services under the supplementary estimates for 23-24. It's not a crime, Honorable Speaker, to borrow money. It's not a crime to be lent money, Honorable Speaker. And as a nation, Kenya, in running its own services to the noble people of Kenya, get money to run its own systems of governance. And as we stand right now, Honorable Speaker, we have had issues with the free fall of the shilling, and proposals to tame the same, Honorable Speaker, should warrant our positive contribution to the extent that, as it were, we will hang around and we should see how to fix this country. About 200 billion Kenya shillings only goes to servicing the difference in the exchange rates, Honorable Speaker. And it is important, Honorable Speaker, that we should have a situation where we increase foreign income to the country, Honorable Speaker, and has already been well elucidated by those who have spoken ahead of me. A raft of issues needs to be done, and I would also just want to emphasize what they have talked about, Honorable Speaker. We should encourage remittances from diaspora, Honorable Speaker. Kenyans who live abroad and Kenyans who work abroad and Kenyans who are outside this country, they try so much to get us back money, to invest back home, and there should be no impediments to these initiatives, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, systems should be put in place by the government to have this encouraged, and this will draw foreign currencies into our country. Tourism activities is another way that we should look at. And recently, Honorable Speaker, when I was going for African parliamentarians meeting, African Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption in Arusha 2 weeks ago, I happened to have boarded the same plane with a raft of tourists who had just transited through Kenya to go to Kilimanjaro. And at one point, the tourist industry was very vibrant, Honorable Speaker. I think we should do whatever it takes. We should conduct ourselves in such a manner that we should rethink our story. We should rethink our system. We should look at where did the rain start beating us, that even now our neighbors are able to get more tourists than us. And even if they are not more, they prefer going there. We really need to, because I should think we have places in Kenya here where these tourists can go hiking. So we really need to revamp our tourist industry, and we should also, Honorable Speaker, undertake to increase our export, Honorable Speaker. We need to increase our export. Most people abroad, and if you go out, Honorable Speaker, you cannot afford a pair of jeans that is made in Kenya at our EPZs, Honorable Speaker. So we should encourage activities, Honorable Speaker, that allows us to export more goods. This country, Honorable Speaker, is agriculture-based, and more often than not, the produce that we give, we don't put so much chemicals in it. We should have systems, Honorable Speaker, that should allow for more export of our agricultural produce. We should encourage the exportation from our mining systems, Honorable Speaker, but more so, Honorable Speaker, we should increase a share of grant financing of the national budget and safeguard the usage of the same. I thank you for the opportunity, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Wanjiku Muhia, member for Kipipiri.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to have a voice on this matter. And Honorable Speaker, I once said in this House that we need to relook at the PFM Act. Maybe this House may need to make some amendment so that anytime the country is going to borrowing way, the debt intended to be incurred be brought to this House, be analyzed, debated upon, because, Honorable Speaker, I think it will call the experts who advise government in borrowing to be professionally or professional patriotics. It is up to our government now to relook and say probably this issue, particularly of dollars and forex, Kenya felt like the big brothers, and anytime we brought the subject of common currency, Kenyans felt like who will carry country A, country X. But as a matter of fact, today, I think that conversation is not there anymore. When we have common currency, as a country, as a bloc, we can be able to negotiate for these debts very strongly. We know some countries like China also having the appetite to lend. So if we shall have a common approach as a region, and there is no way they will lend to us in dollars other than East African shillings, they will have no choice. From 2019 to 2024, currently we are estimating interest. How will we make a foreign currency stable? It is not possible. But if the currency belongs to us, it is possible. But then again, we may not be able to control the world macro and microeconomics alone as a country, but as a growing, Somalia is coming on board. Who knows, in future, Ethiopia may be on board. When we have a block of almost 10 countries, that is huge enough to dictate how the economy of this is.
I want to say that we are lamenting on the problems we are having today. Of the problems we are having today is our own making. And I'll be very, very clear. And if you don't agree with me, tell me that you don't agree with me. I remember you get the white speaker that aggressive. We have not been very aggressive.